If you are a grappler that doesn't have a lot of time, you literally prioritize Jiu-Jitsu and then everything else has to slot in around that, then I'm glad the YouTube gods have put this video in front of you, because in this video I'm going to show you 5 of the best stretches to get you back to baseline, but also increase your strength and durability on the mats as well. My name's Paul Green. I'm a former British paratrooper and Special Forces support group operator. I've spent most of my time over the past decade training elite soldiers from all different sporting backgrounds with a very little amount of time. I have to have the maximum amount of impact. And funnily enough, now I train grapplers in deleting their injuries and building their physical body armor. It's the same coaching philosophy, it's the same tactics, because most people nowadays have very little time and they want the maximum from that time. The first point I need to make is that you need to understand what stretching offers, because there's pros and cons of stretching, and appreciating the cons, you've got to ask yourself, can you outperform it? So what actually happens when you stretch your muscle? You've got all these tangled up muscles from how you sit when you are working and how you play jiu-jitsu, and the muscle fibers are going to get all tangled up, and by stretching it, they're going to extend. Now, one of the main limitations of stretching is that most people don't stretch with enough intensity because they're scared of pulling a muscle, stuff like that. So they don't actually get long-term benefits from stretching, right? But what actually happens when these muscles go from being tangled up to a little bit looser is more nutrients and more blood flow can actually get to them areas, giving you a bit of short-term relief. The second thing you need to understand is that Jiu-Jitsu has a pattern. It will absolutely destroy your knees and it will absolutely destroy your shoulders. I've worked with a lot of men from both of those sides of the coin, and a close runner-up is lower back. So you've got to understand your own personal, as an individual, problematic areas, but you also understand the demands of Jiu-Jitsu on your body. And typically Jiu-Jitsu will destroy your knees and it will destroy your shoulders. So you might want to stretch out the muscles that surround those areas. I'm going to give you some exercises in a sec. Point number 3 is just having the awareness to appreciate in the millisecond of us getting injured. Basically, what happens is that our body, for whatever reason, didn't have the capacity to cope with the demand that was placed on it. Now, this gives us 2 choices. We either avoid the demand or we increase our capacity to cope with those demands. This is why people choose stretching, because they think, if I'm more flexible, I wouldn't have got injured. However, that's not true, because we still have a requirement to be capable enough, to be strong enough to cope with that demand, regardless of how stretched our muscles are. Hopefully you understand them underlying philosophical points before I present the exercises. Exercise number 1 is a deep front leg elevated split squat. As you can see, the position of my rear leg is relatively straight. I'm actually getting a pretty deep stretch of that rear leg hip flexor area. What I'm also stretching, because I'm in the end range knee flexion, is I'm stretching the parts of my quad, the head parts of the quad that are around the knee. And I'm getting the strengthening of that as well when I start to do this bodyweight, and then I start to add dumbbells and I'd start barbell added to it. So I'm not only getting the stretching of the rear leg hip flexor, but I'm getting the stretching of the parts of the quad that surround the knee. But I'm also getting the strengthening of those areas as well, in particular on that front leg. So with every rep, I get a maximum stretch and I get strengthening as well. And you may think, why am I stretching for 10 minutes a day, but I'm not actually getting much relief that lasts more than a few hours? It's because the deficit that you have is with the strength. Do you know what I mean? So there's the first exercise. The next exercise is seated spinal flexion. So you're bending forward and you are flexing the spine. Most people get tweaked backs because they are weak, not because they lack mobility in the spine, it's because they are weak through spinal flexion. The spine is meant to flex, and if we get a nice stretch in that position, chin on chest, and rotating our shoulders forwards, and we pull out of that by using our spinal erectors, we develop strength in spinal flexion. To increase this, you will stand up, use lighter dumbbells, and you will go into heavier dumbbells and then barbells. Strength through spinal flexion. A great stretch, but also a great strengthening exercise as well. The next exercise, number 3, is a dumbbell RDL. So one of the most common injuries is a hamstring injury, especially in stand-up when we're doing judo stuff. And one of the reasons for that is because when we get thrown on our face, we try our hardest to stay on our feet. By trying our hardest to stay on our feet, we put a lot of force in the end range of our hamstrings. A lot of force through the end range of our hamstrings that aren't ready for that leads to issues. Whether you're running, whether you're learning to sprint and stuff like that, these positions put a lot of force through the hamstrings. And it's important that you get the stretch. So we get a great stretch and we get the strengthening as well. Now, if you're doing a yoga pose, a downward dog, you don't get the strengthening. You can't add load. You just get the stretch. Choose exercises that get both the stretch and the strengthening. Because when we start to prioritize the key areas, the key joints of Jiu-Jitsu, the key joints that Jiu-Jitsu destroys, we can actually start to future-proof our performance on the mats. The next exercise is chin-ups. Now, whether you can do a chin-up, whether you can't do a chin-up, there's loads of variations. You can use resistance bands, you can jump up and you can do negatives. But it's very important you get a nice stretch of the shoulders, then the chest at the bottom and the lats. So this one exercise stretches pretty much your full upper body. And what else does it do? It strengthens all of your pulling muscles. Your lats, your traps, your biceps. Stretching. Every single rep we're stretching, and every single rep we are strengthening as well. The last exercise is a heels elevated goblet squat. Same reasons as before with the split squat. We are stretching and strengthening parts of the quad that surround the knee. Think about this for a moment. How much time would you save if every repetition that you did stretched, which got you back to baseline, strengthened, which got you above baseline, and then made you more durable in the joints that get destroyed on the mats? This time-efficient approach has been ingrained in me from my time as a physical training instructor in the Special Forces Support Group. Funnily enough, it's exactly the same coaching philosophy I have with men from different sporting backgrounds on my program because they are relentlessly busy. These exercises will work for the reasons that I've mentioned. If you want any more information on my one-on-one coaching program, comment below the word info.